Okay. Hello, everyone. And welcome. We did it. Oh my God, we're here. We made it.
Did you have to like change times, announcement times online? I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's like, what even is time these days? I'm like, it's so funny to even think sticking to a schedule when I was like the schedule person that was so good with keeping track of everything. And now I'm like, I think I said to the lady at the shops the other day, what day of the week is it today? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, good.
It's not just me.
No. I think everyone on this planet is perceiving this at the moment. So, but thank you for being here. And this is something new. I haven't done this before. I basically just opened my StreamYard account, I don't know, a week ago or something like that. I've been doing a regular podcast and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So my podcast, I kind of originally created it to take with me around the world when we used to do that. So
get on planes and go places?
Yeah. And I would see you guys in person. And then, I was recording these podcasts and it was called Consciousness Road Trip. And I started doing them when I got home and still having guests on. But then I had this idea for like a little mini series. And then my amazing co-creator, Wes, was like, well, why don't you just do them on Facebook Live and then we can pull the audio and turn it into a podcast. So thank you for being my first ever person to test this out with.
I get to be the guinea pig.
You're the guinea pig. Awesome. Yay. So basically what I was looking at was this. So the way this all started was maybe a few months ago when we had the Joy of Business facilitator training. Dr. Dane Heal came on and did like a little guest spot. And my whole life I've known I wanted to create something different in this world. Like I wanted to create change and to, I don't know, like but I never knew. I was like, well, how do I do that? Do I need to paint a Rembrandt or conduct a symphony or, solve world peace? I always had this thing where it was like, yeah. And then I heard Dane say on the JCF training, what if your desire was to create a life that was a gift to the world? And I was like my whole world exploded. And I was like, because that was like everything put into words that I could never put into words. And it took all of the like significance and all of the like all of that trying and all of the comparing to someone else, because there's no definition when someone says that. So so I wanted to do a podcast series. I called this series How One Person Can Change the World. And I just wanted to get people on and look at that and talk to people out there that catch this. And if you hear this and you're on the podcast and you want to see the visual part, please go to my Facebook page, Sarah Watt, and you can watch the video replay. But yeah, I just wanted to start this conversation. So Brendan and I did one a couple of weeks ago, and obviously his version of that, but I just wanted to talk to you, like, what does that mean to you? Like, how is it that one person can change the world?
That is, can I just say, that's such a brilliant idea for like a series of conversations. Because when you said that too, my whole life, I also had this desire for, I mean, now I have words for it. I don't know if I would have verbalized that as like, I definitely did want to change the world though. I felt very like brought to, passionate, really, like before, you know what I mean, about the stuff that was going on in the world. And I felt so wrong that I couldn't change it because I kept thinking, what am I, like you said, do I need to paint a Rembrandt or like start an orphanage? Like if I didn't do some massive quote, like what I thought was this big thing, then I must be feeling, or I didn't find my purpose in life. There's some book, I can't remember, the Kripalu Institute, I want to say Stephen Cope, it might be his name, who founded that, wrote this book called like Your Greatest Work or Your Great Life. And I remember reading it and feeling so wrong because it was a whole book of stories about people who just knew their life, how they were going to, right? Like from the time they were born, it was like Jane Goodall, who I love. I used to be a biology teacher. And if you know, Jane Goodall's the massive primate, like she went out and like, right. And they had this story about her as like a 4-year-old going and sneaking away from the family to sit and watch a chicken lay an egg for like 8 hours quiet and if you know 4-year-olds, this is like, like, how does that even happen? But I read that thinking, I am so wrong. I have not known since I was like 3 years old what I wanted to do in the world. So
Yep.
I was similar to you, where I had this desire. I knew I wanted to change something, but because I wasn't painting the Rembrandt or knew from the time I was a kid what that specifically was, then I was like, I must be wrong. I must not know
Yep.
what is going on. And I have
Yep.
kids coming in from the polls.
That's fine.
You're on Facebook Live. Say hello.
Hi, Facebook land.
Yeah, people can see you. She's like, can other people see me? Yep.
Yeah. And people can see you.
Yes.
Can you go in the mailbox?
Yes.
Go in it.
This is what happens when you do a podcast in the evening.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. But so I love that. So eventually I became a teacher, and I was a biology teacher, because that is something there was something about the earth and the natural world, and especially the ocean, that I really resonated with. And I was like, okay, maybe I could do and I did like dolphin research and sea turtle research. And then I became a high school teacher, and there was something missing. I was like, okay,
yeah,
I know there's something greater, but I should be fulfilled, because that is a pretty gratifying job. You're like working with
right?
kids that are like excited about like what they're going to do in the world. And it was so not enough.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why I love kind of this question, because what you said, what if you just lived your life as a gift to the world? Is that what?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you realize when you're trying to do this thing or making yourself wrong because you haven't achieved whatever you've decided is this, what is the gift, what is this thing that's supposed to change the world? Instead, when you just have this ease and you're being you,
yep.
That is the gift.
Yeah. And also, I love what you say, because it's such a similar story with me. Like, growing up, I was like, and I mean, I still say to people, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. I'm like, are you serious? But I did the same thing. I mean, I worked in animal welfare, and if I sat down and wrote a list of all the really amazing things I'd done in my life, I've changed the world so many times, but we don't really even talking to that for a moment too, that place where what even if you're willing to sit down for 15 minutes and just think of 3 things. I go to a gym, and at the gym, every week on the Monday, the coach asks this question. It's Monday question day, and it's these questions of what's your favorite meal or something. I'm like, what if we ask some questions what did you do to change the world this week? Or to get people into that frame of mind where we know, we do this stuff all the time.
In your daily, what you said, in your daily actions. But if you never ask the question, we do not acknowledge that at all, that it's actually, that is what's changing the world.
Yeah. And even my coaches at the gym, they coach a bunch of people every week, every day. They'll say 1 or 2 things to me. It'll change something in my body, and then I run with it, and everything in my world has changed again. Yeah.
And
this
how
place
different
of
are you to take that
spreading
one
that.
thing and run with it as well, though?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's also the difference of you. That's such a gift.
Yeah. And maybe it's that too, really what you said at the beginning with when you're willing to show up and be you, that's where it all starts to change.
Yeah. And it always, and here's another thing, I think it was Jane who said it as well. Because it's you, it's going to seem so ridiculously easy that you do not value it. So there's no way we equate this massive thing like changing the world with being us, because being you is really easy.
Yep.
Doesn't have that force or the push or the feeling like you have to achieve it actually is just really the ease of being you and that peace. But we don't equate that in this reality with changing the world, because it's not, I don't know, grand enough. I don't even know what that is.
Yep. Yeah. And even to take a look at the people that to you are people that are changing the world. They're not necessarily the people that are winning Nobel Peace Prize. Those people are obviously amazing, and it's all that level of brilliance as well. But it's also what if you were willing to just connect with those people every day? Like, it might be someone at your local supermarket that you go to that's like got this energy about them, or like that place where to acknowledge ourselves and to acknowledge each other about how we do this every day. And that thing, that piece of being you, but also willing to be different as well, I want to talk about a little bit too. Like the willingness to, because, you know, even choosing to be happy, especially right now where the whole world's kind of like, you know, half asleep or depressed or something, like to be this like happy person in this time even can be something that it's quite different.
Yeah. And I mean, I even had my sister like several years ago, like, what is wrong with you? You are always seeing the glass half full. And that's such an invalidation of stuff that's going on in my world and the world. And I was like, wow, okay. Like I, you know, didn't see it that way, but it's actually weird and wrong to be happy because we've made that the intensity and the drama, and they're not saying not to invalidate the stuff that is going on in the world, but you can take the same event and have 5 different people and could be the exact same thing that occurs in their life. Like say something like the death of a loved one. I mean, something massive. Those 5 people are going to experience it completely different depending on who they are and their point of view of how, like their perspective of here's what's given to me and what do I want to create from it? And that's the willingness to be so different that you might actually be happy at a funeral or during COVID, like not be like the world is ending. Like, are you willing to be so different that your point of view makes people go, WTF? Like, what is that?
Who is this person? I want some of that. Yeah. And also being willing to,
or they're crazy. Right?
Yeah, but being willing to be judged for it in a way too, like so many times, and I know this has come up a lot. And if you guys are watching this, like I know everyone on live now, hi Diana, hi Becky, hi Amy, you guys are all doing access consciousness in various forms, which Emily and I are both, and kind of like what this podcast was designed around as well, was to get the tools of access out into the world, because that was the other thing for me. I guess when I found access, it matched that same, you know, that same outlook I had on life from a child, like knowing that there was huge change possible in the world. When I met access, I met what that was for me as a kid. So, but if you're listening to this and you're like, you know, what, like where do I go from here? Or what sort of stuff, like where do I begin? Like Emily and I both, you know, work with, facilitate, live by like some really cool tools and some really fun stuff that you can find out more about as well. And I'll post some links and you can find it on my website and all that sort of stuff. But I've heard so many people also in access say like, and for me, I remember being a kid, I was always a bit different. Let's just say, like, I was always like, you know, I found it hard to fit in. Like, I was like, okay, so I've got to, like, I see that everyone else is doing this thing of like fitting in with everyone. So I was like, okay, so I guess that's what I need to do too. So I really taught myself to fit in. Like it was, and I remember just really having to go through a process and teach myself that, and really cutting off a lot of myself to not be different so I could fit in with the people in my class, in my school, and then, you know, my friends when I got into teenage and early adulthood time. And just like how much I've realized now that's such a disservice to the world and to myself and to everyone else, because when I'm willing to show up and be me and be judged for that, that's also where like the real change can start to occur as well.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is, so that if you ask me one thing, I'm like, what do I love facilitating? It's like people being willing to claim and see how different they are and be it, and being willing to receive whatever comes from that. And sometimes it is real like, wow, thank you, you're inviting me to something different. And sometimes it's complete judgment of whatever you're bringing up in their world, like that, you know, and it's the whole gamut. And it's been so interesting. Right now I have 2 daughters who made their appearance earlier, right? And we were literally just driving home tonight from dinner, and the one, she left her mask, because they have to wear masks at school right now. She left her mask at a friend's house after school and was having this fit about that she doesn't have her mask. I said, well, I have plenty of those like surgical masks, which are the lightweight ones anyway. Right now, I've had to learn my, And I said, well, you can just wear one of those. And she's like, Mom, no one wears those at school. I am not wearing that. And Sevi's like, Nellie, why do you even care? Like, you shouldn't care what people think. And it was so interesting because to actually, and then be an allowance for one of them really wanting, she's at the age where you really want to fit in.
Yep.
And so to see that and know that I'm aware, and we'll have conversations, but also I have to be an allowance of her. It's like, but I don't like, it is so intense in the world right now. Like that is not what she wants to fit in. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I have my other one who's not quite as, now she's like, who cares?
Yeah.
And they're different. And it's like, okay, that's also acknowledging your difference. Like you don't have to be that other, it's like, okay, you are who you are right now in this moment. And you get to choose. If I didn't, so you get to choose. But would you be willing to know how different you are to me? Like all the stuff that you bought, because think like you probably started buying that from that age of all these things you were supposed to be like.
Yeah. Yeah. But having someone in your life that's willing to let you like choose that as well. Like, and where you're changing their worlds through being a mom that allows them to choose that themselves and not sort of be like, you need to fit in or you need to not fit in. It's like, you get to choose. And I mean, like I chose to try and fit in for many years. Me too. And eventually I was like, actually, this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm going to change it. So it's not like there's still any right or wrong way to do any of this as well. It's just like, what if every day you woke up and asked that question, like what Dane said on the JCF training? What if every day you woke up and said, okay, so what if my desire was to create a life that was a gift to the world? And how would I choose my day based on that? And then the other one that Gary said recently, Gary Douglas and Dane here are the founders and co-creators of Access Consciousness. I heard him on something recently say, what kind of person would I like to be today? Because for me as well, it's like I wake up in the morning and it's almost like that's the time for me to sort of set the pace for my day a little bit. Because most of the time I wake up in the morning and I'm like in some form of like disarray. I don't know why. I don't know what I do at nighttime while I'm sleeping, but I'm obviously, because I wake up like, holy shit. And then it's like, okay, so then I kind of like ask myself some questions and really get myself in that place for the day of like, being me. Like if I was really having this place of showing up as myself, what would that look like? And for me, some of these questions I hear people ask, like I've got the one from Gary and I have Dane's somewhere here as well. Like I just write it on StreamYard always confuses me. I write it on a card and like sit it somewhere near my desk and have that as a reminder, like a cue as well, to know that you can change in any moment. Like for your girls, they'll choose to want to fit in or choose not to want to fit in for as long as they choose it. And then they can change it again.
And that is whether or not you have kids, you can also equate this to someone you care about a lot. It's one of the hardest things because we've so equated caring in this reality to like judging what you think they should choose and helping them see why you think they should choose it, And I see that with girls, like, I would love her to choose like not giving a shit about what other kids think. And right now, the more I push that, if I had a point of view, the more she's going to like, that's a point of view. Like, it's so interesting to really put these tools to action and be like, okay, you have information. And then like, that is the gift to empower them to choose and empower yourself to choose what is working for you right now. And what does that look like? Because today, like to acknowledge the difference of you, or what would that be to live your life as a gift to the world? It's going to change every day. And you said sometimes you're going to wake up and be like, okay. And other days, it's okay to still ask that question and be like, I don't know. It's like maybe laying in my bed today and watching movies. That really might be a gift to the world. Really.
Yep. Well, it might be as well, because when you're in one of those moods where it's like, I'm going to laser beam everyone, it might be better to just stay inside and watch Netflix all day. Oh, something came up that you were saying then. Oh, also this thing of like, because, I don't have kids, but listening to you talk about your girls is like this thing also where it's this lead by example sort of energy where even having that influence in their lives and again, for everyone to look at like, okay, so who do I see in the world that that is such a good example to me of being someone who changes the world. And like, how could just through being me, how are you also like, it's this whole doing versus being thing really as well. Like, you don't really have to do anything if you're willing to show up and be you, and especially if you're willing to be you from a place of kindness, allowance, gratitude for everything and everyone. Like, people are going to naturally want to copy that, or like to take parts of that and make it their own.
Yeah.
And that's all it took really for the world to really start changing, was for everyone to step into more of that. And it's like that ripple effect. People start seeing it in each other and choosing more of it for themselves.
And I love that, because really, how much do we resist the ease of that? That's actually like, when you say that's my perspective too, is like, it really actually could be that easy. And it might seem like Diana just wrote, "Thank you for the conversation. Was kind of frustrated with my son Caleb for some of his choices." I know, like, I literally sometimes want to go, "Are you kidding me?" But then but you really look at that and it's like, wow, if I think of the space that someone gives you when you really want to choose to be upset, or it, like, whatever that is in the moment, if someone just is like, okay, I'm not going to try to push you to think this thing or get happy, or it is such a gift. And eventually, like, that is just the gift. I guess there is no eventually, but I look at too, that creates more choices in that person's world, because they don't have to fight or be in resistance to your point of view of that you should be in a good mood, or you should choose this, or you should want to change the world this way. It's like, if you don't have that, the gift you are showing up, that's a great example of being a gift to the world. Like, just being with people, like, you get to choose what you'd like to choose. Who does that?
Yeah. I love it. So cool. And just start playing with it too. And for me, I mean, I've been on this earth for nearly 40 years, and I've known access consciousness for maybe 10 of those years. And I've like, it's also like this continual journey of every day, like it being this place of just of going there and finding it, and then asking for more, and then going there again, and then sometimes being like, okay, today I'm like totally like, and that's when obviously go and get your bars run, or call a friend and ask them some questions, or get them to ask you some questions. But also, so it's where, like, so often I thought, okay, one day I'm going to make it. One day I'm going to be there, wherever the fuck there is. I don't even know what that means. But one day I'm going to wake up and everything's going to be great.
Yeah, I had that.
And
too.
now you realize.
That is crazy. Yeah.
And now it's like, what if every day it was just this journey of creating yourself anew?
And it's so fun. I think I have this group on Facebook called the Neon Sheep Lounge. If you guys are not in it, it's free. You can join it. But it's so, we were having this conversation yesterday about that. Is so, I was so there too. I was like, there's some weird thing we do, or we're sold in, like, in this reality of like, one day I will like somehow get to this place where I'm like happy and I'm changing the world, and like, I don't know what we think if someone like we're gonna jump from here to here, and that's so not how it works. It is the joy of everyday living and those little gifts that the universe goes, here you go, that when you stop and acknowledge, not even stop, just acknowledge them along the way, that it's this whole journey that then you can be wherever you thought. I don't even know what that is. It's just so different.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And even like, I've been looking at it a lot, like throughout my life, and like how much I've heard Brendan say it a lot as well. And obviously, being my brother, we had, childhoods that were side by side, but like how he sort of said, like, how often we wait for someone to choose us, like, so whether it's the perfect relationship or the perfect job, or like, I even remember being a kid. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to just have like a total honest moment here. I was quite young, and I went to a concert in Caloundra where I grew up, and I saw this group. I can't even remember, but they were popular at the time, singing songs, blah, blah, blah. And I remember standing there in the front and just being like, having this energy of like, oh, if they saw me right now and saw how much I admire them and everything they're creating, there's no way they couldn't recognize that. And somehow in my world, I was like, they're going to bring me up on stage and kind of make me part of like whatever this is that they're creating. I'll be like this chosen person. And I started looking at all the places in my life where I've had this energy of that. And especially going into, what was that?
Waiting to be chosen.
Yeah. And like, especially with like, and you know, it's not like I've sat back my whole life. I've fucking also worked my ass off really hard to create a lot of stuff too, but still always with this thing in mind of one day I'll be chosen. And I don't even know what for. Really? Like what that is. Yeah.
But God, can I just say the vulnerability to like look at that? Because like if anyone else looked at you, they're like, you are so not standing back waiting to be chosen, but to acknowledge, and that energy is actually in my world still.
It is. Yep.
Because how much you sold that I looked at like from the time my kids were little, and that weird thing from watching just movies or YouTube things of like waiting to be chosen by your Prince Charming. Yep. Like that's so, and that's just one area, but it is so strangely endemic. Even if you're someone who's like, I'm creating my life, but to look at those places where you actually do have these strange points of view and not make yourself wrong for them, but if you're willing to look at them.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I remember really similar, like you somehow, it's like the strange thing where you know you're different, but you're not willing to like just be it. So someone needs to choose you so that you can go, see, someone else, I can now be it.
Yep. So and I still see myself doing it now. But now the cool thing is when you're aware of it, you can change it.
Yep.
Like, so now every time this energy comes up, I'm like, Sarah, you know, have a little conversation with myself. I'm like, Sarah, are you doing it again? And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so cute. And it's not like it's wrong. I can still indulge in that if I desire to. And sometimes you could even use that to your advantage. I mean, you know, in whatever way that is, it's not to discount any of this as being wrong, but it's just this place of like where, because looking back at when I was a kid, like I would have been young, like 10 or 12 years old or something like that. Truly in my world at that point, I had bought that once I was chosen, I would make it. I don't know to where or what that was even, but just to be really, like you said, to be really present with these crazy fucking things that we tell ourselves.
Once I'm chosen, I will make it. How many of us have that? In some, I'm like, that is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be anything.
It could be anything. Like it could be a relationship, but it could be something else. And it's so funny because you say that. It's like you're waiting, because how much have we been made wrong for if you choose you, that somehow it's selfish or arrogant, or so you have to wait for someone else to choose you and tell you how amazing you are so that you can go, see, I am, but you can't just choose you. You can't just choose you. And that's what, when you choose you and that energy for you, that's where the true acknowledgement from other people can show up, because you already have that energy for you.
Yep. And if not, you could choose the complete opposite, which I've also done a lot, where it's like, okay, when they recognize my brilliance, and then someone will recognize it and I will totally reject them because I'm like, I can't. You know, like these crazy ass things that we do where it's like, what, you're acknowledging me for how amazing I am? There must be something wrong with you. Moving on. Like,
you must be insane. I'll just dismiss that.
I need that from you, but once you tell it to me, you're definitely insane. So yeah, so interesting. And I loved what you said then about like once you have that for you. So guys, like if you're watching this or you're listening later or you're hearing the podcast, like what if you could just start to, every time you go to look to someone else to acknowledge you for anything, the outfit you're wearing, you know, whatever it is, like you stopped and really had a moment to acknowledge yourself for that and started to just also just retrain yourself in a way to like have more of you.
Yeah, I love that. It is, and it's okay to kind of have it be a retraining. Like it's like untraining, because like we have been trained.
Untraining, I like that.
This reality, right? It's okay, I'm not going to keep going down that. And just having, and I always love that analogy of the gentle way you have a new puppy, like the way you'd like show a puppy or like a little kid, like, yeah, you did that again. And there's this kindness of like, but you're not wrong. Like, here you go. Here's another one. Now, if you could be that with yourself every time, it's like we all have these really insane, funny ways our training, our mind, all these things have created these different paths we take, but underneath it all, there's you.
Yeah.
And that is the gift. Like if you actually, the more you get to that, the more the ease of just you being you is the gift. Like you don't have to paint a Picasso or it's like, okay, what if really that your gift to the world is more and more every day you just asked for more of you. And like I love asking like universe, like what would it take to acknowledge more of the difference of me beyond this reality, beyond what I've defined that as, it's just because all of us are infinite beings. So there is not one of us alike. So the more you ask that, the more things you can perceive about you. And when you're going to just perceive it and go, wow, like I choose me. I am that cool. Okay. Like if I were the one in the concert, I would choose me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Like what would that create? I don't know.
Yeah. And don't turn it down. Don't turn yourself down for anyone as well, I want to say. Like be that place of being all of you and ask exactly like you were saying, like ask for all of you to show up and more, like to be this place where whether you open your mouth or not, you have such a presence of being in the world that people can't help but, well, it's not even that people can't help, but the world can't help but change just through your very, very presence of being there. And just to quickly brush on, like we've talked about a lot of stuff. I mean, been going for 30 minutes and like there's been a lot of conversations, but also if you're listening to this, guys, tap into the energy of what we're talking about as well, which is something that I sometimes don't talk about so much because it's like seen as like this woo woo, like what it like, you can't hold it and touch it and see it. So what even is energy? But it's unrefutable in my world anymore. And I can't go on denying that energy is what can and does change and create everything. So whatever that is for you, not to make it significant, but if you guys are listening to this, also just however that is for you, tap into the energy of this conversation and allow that to contribute to you as well.
And I know we've been talking about, but can I just add to that too? I'm so glad you said that. This is one of those days, those days when you have a lot of like calls and videos and stuff to catch your talk. And it's so funny because that's come up on almost everyone. And I think I just had sort of a new revelation with that in the last 2 days of it's so easy to make things hard and sit and re-listen. And there's a space for that, like where I really need to get something cognitively and this brilliant, and I will do that. And there's something that if you allow it in this conversation and in literally every interaction in your world, if you just realize like and acknowledge there's different energies all the time. And the more you're asking questions, the more you're aware of them, the more you perceive them, and you're changing without having to think about it and not have to do the hard work. Like that is the magic of having your life be a gift to the world. Because I looked at it, same as you, as this hard work. Like I had to do a certain amount of work for the gift to be valid or the gift to like somehow be of value to the world. And the more I look at it, like you said, you can't deny this energy piece to it. You walk, like you said, saying nothing. You might go on a walk through the park. And if you are this energy, you are changing people's worlds.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, the other big piece that I've been playing with a lot, even especially these last couple of days too, it's funny, is slowing right down. Like I watched that movie, it's kind of a movie documentary that Dane also recommended called My Octopus Teacher.
I did too. Oh my God.
Yeah. Like talk about a guy, and I'm sure so many people could relate to this too. Like he was working in like a very like a full-on job. He was working as a movie producer or making movies, and he was traveling a lot, and then he just burned out and was like, I need a break, I'm done. And he went home to wherever he was, and started diving, like doing free diving. And then, and anyway, I won't go into the whole story, but he saw this octopus, and for basically a year, a whole year, every day he dove. Every day he went down and dove. And, you know, he wasn't going on to Facebook Lives and talking about it. He wasn't telling the world. Every day he went and took whatever, 2-3 hours out of his day and dove and met this octopus. And there's a whole story. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix in Australia right now. Please go and watch it. It's fucking brilliant. And the way he puts aside a year of his life was so inspirational to me. And I've recently got a horse here in Australia, and to be around animals, guys, as well, is such a gift, because they do not do time. Their concept of time is like, I don't know what, like my puppy. Like, I'm like, dude, I need you to go outside to the toilet now. I've got a meeting. This is happening. And she looks at me like, does not compute. Like, for them, it's like, your schedule means nothing to me. Like, your linear time, it's like food, sleep, you know, pee, poo, play. Like, there's nothing in their worlds where they're like, I need to be here at this certain time. And that's the other cool thing that I'm super grateful for with right now, is how I don't remember a time in my life where I wasn't thinking about the next thing and already propelling myself into whatever was coming up next. And I'm still doing it. I still do it. And like, also having this place of, what if I took a year to do one thing?
Wow.
Yeah.
And
so,
yeah, I watched that too. You guys have, and I was amazed too at, again, the energies. We somehow associate certain energies of intimacy really with, like, a puppy's pretty easy to like, but an octopus, like, before I watched that, I was like, okay, like, they're not cuddly. What could you have? And you watch that and you're like,
that thing was like, yeah.
Like, I was like, okay, what do we all know that's so far beyond this reality about that energy of play and intimacy with other creatures? And it's like, there's consciousness everywhere. I was so blown away by that too.
Yeah. And, you know, there's certain things in our lives we need to do, like meetings or birthdays or things to remember. So, like, set reminders in your phone and remind yourself. But what if, like, you could just take some chunk of your day, and not even it be a set time, and just wander off somewhere, like whether it's into a book or into a movie or into nature, into the ocean. Like, what if you were willing to just, someone just popped in here that they've been running bars, Amy, her and her friend, and they've lost the concept of time. Like, yeah, what if you were willing to just wander somewhere, anywhere? Yeah. And what would that create?
I mean, because it's so easy to not do that with our phones and the stuff we have to do. And that's I'm going to do the home play.
Cool. Let's do it. Me too.
Okay.
Me too. Cool. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'll post some things. Can people still join the Neon Sheep adventure?
Neon Sheep Lounge is a free Facebook group ongoing. All the time. You can, and I do have like a paid version of like where we have some extra Zoom calls and things, but and that's $33 a month. But anyone, anytime can join. It's a free Facebook group where I like, I'd love, and maybe you could come on and be one of my guests. Would you come and be
anytime?
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll post some things and I'll post your website and stuff. And this will live on Facebook now. And then I'll pull the audio and pop it on the podcast as well. And guys, if you're listening to this and you've got questions, please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Emily, go to accessconsciousness.com. And yeah, like, thank you so much for being my guest. And
thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you for not making time significant so we could come on a little later.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.